Yeah, but we have a situation here where
candidate who initially funded this dossier.
racket, whatever it is, up and running. We've been investigating this now for 18 months. Why can't the FBI wrap up an investigation into an election campaign in less than the 2-year period between elections?
Mark, we are not privy to that information, just like we were not privy to all of the information into Bill Clinton and Watergate, which ended up birthing the Monica Lewinsky scandal. We don't have all of that information. So it's impossible and preposterous for us right now to speculate on why it is taking this long. They are doing their jobs. They are public servants doing their jobs, and they're they're under attack on the daily by Donald Trump, who I think is doing a PSYOP campaign because he knows that there's more information coming and he wants to plant a seed of doubt in the public. To me, that is reprehensible.
Well, Robin, thanks for framing it as a psyops campaign. If you're actually targeted by the FBI, I'm not sure you need psyops to want to protest against that. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch, and Tom, Robin was rather coy about that. But basically, this totally worthless dossier has had an incredible life. It's like a zombie. You cannot drive a stake through this piece of garbage thing that a foreign spy cooked up for the Democrats. It's running around like a mechanical hare all across town. Has it got any probative value, as the lawyers like to say?
Well, according to your news organization's reporting on the testimony of Andrew McCabe, the number 2 at the FBI, they couldn't confirm anything, or he refused to confirm anything beyond the fact that Carter Page, a campaign advisor to the Trump campaign, may have traveled to Russia.
Right.
Other than that, there's nothing they've been able to confirm. But what we have been able to confirm is that the authors of the Trump dossier were Clinton campaign vendors, and they were working with the Obama Justice Department and the Obama FBI. And the FBI of the Obama administration was, the leadership there was vehemently anti-Trump, it's now evident. And they laundered this campaign document into the Justice Department and FBI, and it may have been used to spy on the Trump campaign. And it still may be being used by Robert Mueller. Right. So, you know, to the degree the dossier is still being used by Mueller, it's a real ethical concern because of where it came from.
No, I agree with you on that, Tom. I mean, in a sense, it's a bit like what in Hollywood Alfred Hitchcock used to call the MacGuffin. It's like used as the pretext to set the game afoot. In other words, it had no value as Oppo research to Hillary Clinton, but it had value to the government, the outgoing government, in getting them into a position where they could surveil their political opponents. That's the conspiracy theory.
And it gets even worse for Mrs. Clinton, because what happened is that Mrs. Clinton used her law firm, her campaign's law firm, as a cutout to spend money on this Fusion GPS dossier effort, who went to Russia, supposedly, to talk to intelligence people and intelligence sources in Russia. So you had the Clinton campaign spending money to send people to Russia to find dirt on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's the one under investigation on collusion. And to me, this is a political investigation. It was designed by never-Trumpers, anti-Trumpers, right, whatever you want to call it. James Comey obviously did not like President Trump, and he leaked information in order to get this appointment of Robert Mueller. And it's just gone downhill from there. And now we found out the top FBI agent under Mueller, in terms of counterintelligence, was a never-Trumper. The number 2, Andrew Weissman, the number 2 prosecutor on his team, attended Hillary Clinton's election night party, and was sending friendly emails to Sally Yates as she thwarted the rule of law at the Justice Department. That's the Obama holdover.
That's actually incredible, Tom. Thank you for that. It is the revenge of Jim Comey, and a former FBI official says the fired director's behavior has effectively sabotaged the credibility of the Mueller investigation. That FBI official joins us next on Tucker Carlson Tonight.
Your modern software factory runs millions of lines of code through trillions of connections. You think I'm dramatizing? Think again. Application security, each line a potential breach. That's why checking code before you deploy isn't enough. You have to check it continuously.
I do?
Yep, you do. When your app's in here, and when it's out here. I know, you can't be in a trillion places at once, but we can.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
And I can do it with what's already within me.
Because my body can still make its own insulin. And once weekly Trulicity activates my body to release it. Trulicity is not insulin. It comes in a once weekly, truly easy to use pen. It works 24/7, and you don't have to see or handle a needle.
Trulicity is a once weekly injectable medicine to improve blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes when used with diet and exercise. It should not be the first medicine to treat diabetes or for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Trulicity if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, if you have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you're allergic to Trulicity. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or symptoms like itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, and indigestion. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I choose once weekly Trulicity to activate my within.
If you need help lowering your A1C and blood sugar, activate your within. Ask your doctor about once weekly Trulicity.
Turkey's done. Hi, do you sell ready-made turkeys?
Sorry, I can't make it. It's just my eczema again, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
You okay?
Eczema, it's fine.
Hey.
Hi.
Aren't you hot? Eczema again?
It's fine.
I saw something the other day. Eczema exposed. Your eczema could be something called atopic dermatitis, which can be caused by inflammation under your skin. Maybe you should ask your doctor.
Go to eczemaexposed.com to learn more.
Special counsel Robert Mueller has dominated dozens of news cycles with his investigation into alleged Russian meddling in U.S. politics. But that's not the only DOJ investigation going on. Inspector General Michael Horowitz has spent a year investigating how Jim Comey and the FBI handled their investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. Horowitz is the one who found Peter Strzok's text messages to his paramour bashing Donald Trump. Chris Swecker is a former assistant director at the FBI. He says Jim Comey's conduct last year has become a trap for Mueller's own investigation. Chris, I guess to use the president's words, whether or not the FBI is tainted, Mueller's investigation has been tainted by the revelations about these never-Trumpers in the previous investigation.
Well, Director Mueller is living with some of the things, some of the decisions and bad judgment of former Director Comey, who was in the position for 4 years before Director Mueller was appointed special counsel. And what's happened with Agent Strzok and his paramour is not helpful to the investigation, wherever his investigation is going. With 38 years of experience in this business around criminal investigations, I can tell you a good defense attorney can make something out of this alleged bias.
Yeah, that's critical if any of this stuff ever winds up before a jury. You lay the blame on Comey. His behavior since being removed from the Bureau, and indeed during the last couple of years before that, seems like a man temperamentally unsuited for the job he held. Is that a fair estimation?
Well, frankly, I was surprised at his judgment and his behavior. He had a good reputation. I think the agents liked him. He's very personable, and I dealt with him in my capacity as head of the FBI's criminal division. But the judgment that he displayed and the rules that he broke when he made a prosecutive decision as the FBI director and then announced it in great detail to the American public, instead of handing that investigation off to Loretta Lynch, who, if he thought was conflicted, could have recused herself and passed it down one notch, was just monumental bad judgment. I think a series of cascading events have that is what has drawn the FBI into politics.
Let me ask you about that, because if a crime winds up in the county courthouse, a policeman investigates it and the county attorney decides whether to prosecute it. In this case, the policeman and the county attorney were the same person, Jim Comey. Is that unusual in the Bureau's history?
Very unusual. If you look at the Justice Department procedures and the FBI's procedures and the Code of Federal Regulations, there is a separation between investigations and prosecution. The FBI will predicate an investigation with facts. They'll open it up, they'll conduct the investigation, they'll consult with the U.S. attorney, but the final prosecutive decisions are always made by either the U.S. attorney or someone within the main Justice Department. That's just the way it works.
Let me ask you this, because as I understand it, there's about 35,000 employees of the FBI, yet the same handful of people investigating one presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, then seemed to transfer seamlessly to investigate the other presidential candidate, Donald Trump. Do you think that's best practice, as it were?
No, I don't. Obviously, former Director Comey thought that was his A-team, so he had them transition very quickly to the Russian investigation after what I thought was a very half-hearted non-investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails. So that investigation runs out supposedly, and then it seems like a good percentage of that team was assigned to the Russian investigation with all the baggage they brought with them.
Yeah, you'd almost think it was like one reputation investigation. Get Hillary off the hook, and if that doesn't work, get Trump onto it. Chris, thanks very much. Interesting to hear from a former number 3 G-man during these recent years. The United Nations got a fat lump of coal in its Christmas stocking this year, courtesy of the Trump administration. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has announced a $285 million cut cut to the UN's budget for 2018. The US pays 22% of the UN's overall operating costs. Dr. Alan Mendoza is Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, a British think tank. Dr. Mendoza, how are these supposed cuts to America's UN largesse playing in London and elsewhere in Europe?
Well, not well. I think they've played about as well as the American decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. This is not the most popular policy in Europe, but I've got to be honest, I think the Americans have done the right thing here. You're looking after your own financial responsibilities, and you're making it clear that it won't be business as usual at the UN, and things have to change.
Well, to go back to that Jerusalem vote that you just mentioned, isn't that actually part of the problem with the UN, that it's a very lavish body for striking attitudes, and that doesn't matter whether it's the Organization for Islamic Cooperation or the European Union. They all swan into the General Assembly and strike an attitude on Israel and then stick US taxpayers with the tab for it. I mean, is there any purpose to a body such as that?
Well, I think the General Assembly is just a waste of space. I mean, if you look at what you see there, you see democracies completely outnumbered by non-democracies, which wasn't, I think, the goal of the UN when it was set up. And as you say, you have every hobby horse being flogged, and the results are that frequently the democracies don't get their way in terms of what you might think would be sensible international policy, and you get crazy things passed through. Now, fortunately, of course, it has no sort of standing value. But then you've got a question, as you suggest, what's the point of an organisation, or at least a body, that has no ability to influence things and which gets hijacked in this way?
Meanwhile, back in the real world, the Islamic State has lost 98% of its territory, and yet that's barely made the papers because nobody wants to give Donald Trump the credit for it.
Well, I think this is the big story of 2017. It's been the defeat of the so-called everlasting caliphate. And indeed, Donald Trump and, of course, the American military must take a lot of responsibility and praise for this. But you're right, it doesn't come across in terms of public understanding, or certainly political elite understanding. But I think we will feel the impact of this going forwards in reduced terrorist attacks, of course, a reduced threat going forwards from radical Islam and other such matters. So, yes, I think the world does owe a great debt to Donald Trump, and indeed to all those who have prosecuted this war to its ultimate end point.
What's your solution to the UN? Because it's basically the World War II victory parade. It's America, Britain, France, Russia, plus China. And if you want to reform anything, various of those parties object. Is it just something that should be left to die, every 200 million by 200 million cut, or can it be reformed?
Well, I think you've hit upon something there, which is that the way to reform it is not to try and get consensus, because it's impossible. Which power, say, of those five alone will give up their veto power and look at that? Which group will want to sort of, succumb to less influence? It can't work that way. But I think the way's been shown, in a sense, by this budget cut. You've got the ability now to reform the step and say, we don't think this works. We're not funding it anymore. And if you don't fund it, then it won't go forwards in that way anymore. So the power is there. Do we have the confidence to use it?
That's always the quote. They like their money. Dr. Mendoza, those UN diplomats. California Governor Jerry Brown has good news for the immigrants of his state. You can commit a felony, and he'll still try to keep you from being deported. We'll debate that story next on Tucker Carlson Tonight.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
And I can do it with what's already within me.
Because my body can still make its own insulin. And once weekly Trulicity activates my body to release it. Trulicity is not insulin. It comes in a once weekly, truly easy to use pen. It works 24/7, and you don't have to see or handle a needle.
Trulicity is a once-weekly injectable medicine to improve blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes when used with diet and exercise. It should not be the first medicine to treat diabetes or for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Trulicity if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, if you have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you're allergic to Trulicity. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or symptoms like itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, and indigestion. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I choose once weekly Trulicity to activate my within.
If you need help lowering your A1C and blood sugar, activate your within. Ask your doctor about once weekly Trulicity.
Get up to $400 toward a Galaxy Note 8 or S8 with qualifying trade-in. Only on Samsung.com.
Touch is how we communicate with those we love. But when your psoriasis is bad, does it ever get in the way? Embrace the chance of 100% clear skin with Taltz. Taltz is proven to help people with moderate to severe psoriasis achieve completely clear skin. With Taltz, up to 90% of patients had a significant improvement of their psoriasis plaques. In fact, 4 out of 10 even achieved completely clear skin. Don't use if you're allergic to Taltz. Before starting, you should be checked for tuberculosis. Taltz may increase risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or have symptoms, or if you've received a vaccine or plan to. Inflammatory bowel disease can happen with Taltz, including worsening of symptoms. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Ready for a chance at 100% clear skin? Ask your doctor about Taltz today and go to Taltz.com to learn how to pay as little as $5 a month.
These birds, once affected by oil, are heading back home thanks to Dawn. Rescue workers only trust Dawn because it's tough on grease yet gentle.
I am home. I am home. I am home.
Okay.
Is that Marcy? Why does she look so great?
Oh, I just signed her up for the Fuel Rewards program, and she got instant gold status.
It's almost like she has a glow about her today.
No, it's the instant gold status. She's saving 5 cents a gallon on every fill-up.
Maybe it's a haircut?
I'm pretty sure it's the instant gold status. Here, check it out.
Oh, wow, I look great, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Get instant gold status at Shell when you join the Fuel Rewards program. You'll save 5 cents per gallon on every fill-up. Join by December 31st and save an extra 25 cents per gallon on your second fill-up.
Hi, Marcy!
They may have more rights than you do. Just before Christmas, Brown pardoned 2 immigrants scheduled to be deported for committing felonies here in the U.S. One of the 2 men was a gang member convicted of an illegal weapons charge. Brown's hope is that the pardons will allow both immigrants to stay in America. Evidently, he believes they will greatly strengthen America. Jose Magana is an attorney and immigration advocate. He joins us. Jose, this is a strategy by guys like you to use gubernatorial pardons to do an end run around the deportation process, correct?
Well, Mark, I think there's a little bit of confusion. We may be looking at 2 different versions of the Constitution because mine actually has the 10th Amendment in it. And under the 10th Amendment, governors are expected to regulate their state's criminal justice system, including pardons. These individuals went through an incredibly rigorous and stringent process to be eligible for these pardons, including 10 years of being crime-free, obtaining a certificate of rehabilitation, and paying their debt to society.
Well, wait a minute before we get to that, because in 20 years, from 1991, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Gray Davis, and Pete Wilson pardoned a grand total between them of 15 criminals, 15 pardons. That's 3/4 of a pardon per year. In 6 years, Governor Brown has done, I think it's up around 1,500 pardons. So clearly, the nature of a presidential pardon and the 10th Amendment and the power of the pardon is changing. And to go back to my question, that's because you guys have figured that the immigration lobby, the illegal immigration lobby, has figured this is a great way to do an end run around the national government's power to deport.
It's a great way to help individuals who have been here for 30, 40, 50 years who emigrated to the United States legally, as both of these individuals did, who have deep legal connections in U.S. citizen families, to essentially present their case in front of an immigration judge. These pardons don't guarantee their ability to stay in the country. Now, Mark, you were Canadian, you had a green card. If this had happened to you, I would be fighting for your opportunity to fight and show that you're a contributing member to this country, which you are. You're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do, like hosting the show.
Hosting for Tucker. Yeah, I'll take you up on that, because some twit at the border tried to deport my little daughter. There was no there's no kind of sentimentality about legal immigration in certain respects. But you know as well as I do that when a citizen commits a crime, you're stuck with the citizen. When a non-citizen commits a crime, he is at risk of deportation. So why is the immigration lobby so eager not even to deport criminals? If you want to change people's minds on immigration, wouldn't it help to actually show a willingness to deport gang members with the kind of conviction that one of these pardon recipients has?
Well, generally, this administration isn't even prioritizing gang members and criminal aliens. Most of the people that it's going after are little girls with cerebral palsy in Texas, dreamers that get too close to the border, women seeking protective orders in courthouses. So when you say that conservatives are arguing for the deportation of criminals and other similar individuals, that's not even what this administration is doing. It's simply waving gang affiliation as a magic wand to try to turn America against the broader immigrant population. And I'm sure you would agree that we shouldn't demonize all immigrants.
Well, wait a minute. We can't demonize gang members. I mean, there are communities a long way from the Mexican border that have been hollowed out by MS-13, for example. There are communities that were peaceful, boring, picket fence suburbs where they're now having ritual initiation murders committed by MS-13 members. Why should this gang member be given a pardon? And more to the point, how does the American gang member in the cell next door feel when he sees governors prioritizing immigrants for pardons over the native-born criminal class?
Well, in this case, Governor Brown also pardoned a wide variety of U.S. citizens. As long as you meet the stringent criteria, you're able to apply. And, Mark, I would argue that our country has historically always been committed to the concept of rehabilitation and paying your debt to society, which both of these individuals have done. By asking to be deported, these individuals are essentially being double punished.
Wait a minute. A World War II veteran from the United Kingdom whose wife got sick and died in hospital, and he's in America, and he stayed with her to die in America, to watch her die in America. He was kicked out and banned from entering the country for 10 years for no crime other than staying with his sick wife. What people are worried about is there's a bifurcation here between a cosseting of the professional criminal class and the ruthlessness that you describe with cerebral palsy victims.
You know, this administration has also consistently deported Mexican veterans, and I'd like them to return. I'd like the specific case that you mentioned to return. Now, if you want to be mad about pardons, be mad about the commutation that President Trump did last week for a meat packer who had exploited and trafficked 400 undocumented immigrants, including children. So what we're basically saying is we're fine with pardons for people exploiting immigrants, but not for the immigrants themselves? Come on, Mark.
Well, you know, that's not where this stops, Jose. As you know, there's a strategy behind this, and that strategy has got the cooperation of a lot of Democrat governors and the immigration lobby. But thanks for coming on the show. Last week, Tucker reported on the biggest story of the year, the biggest story. Liberals have run out of racist statues to take down, so they've now moved on to racist trees. In the California desert, the city of Palm Springs wants to chop down a grove of 60-year-old tamarisk trees that stands between a golf club and a black residential neighborhood. If you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, aren't liberals supposed to be tree huggers? Well, yes. Unless you're planting a racist tree. The city believes these trees were planted with racist intent. Others say it was to prevent some chap sauntering in his +4s from calling for his niblick and chipping that golf ball straight through your window. But that's always the cover for racism, isn't it?
people don't go out and say, we're doing this for a racist reason. They go out and say, we're going to give you landscaping. In fact, we're going to landscape you right out of existence. And oh, by the way, these trees are going to protect you from golf balls.
So just like race, golf balls flying through your kitchen window is a social construct. Don't worry about it. The tamarisk is now the Robert E. Lee of trees. It's Robert E. Tree. And liberals suddenly have no more desire to hug that tree than they do to hug Charlie Rose or Matt Lauer. The tamarisk is not just racist, it's nasty.
The African-American, the black families whose properties are adjacent to those trees, and if you've done any research on the tree, you'll know that's one of the nastiest trees around, and it's also been declared an environmental disaster by the federal government.
What?
They grow to be 60
because
feet
it's
tall,
wait,
and they
no,
grow to
slow
be
down.
25
Now,
feet
well,
wide.
hold on. Now, hold on. Because that tree is a foreign tree, you're calling it nasty?
So to invert Barbara Walters, if this tree were a celebrity, what celebrity would it be?
I am a nasty woman.
The tamarisk is nasty and foreign. But wait a minute, as we just heard, in California, everything's foreign. An illegal immigrant can get a driver's license, free health care. An unlawful immigrant can practice law in California. The one thing he can't do is stand on the edge of a golf course covered in foliage. On that, everyone's a nativist.
Okay, so are you a nativist now?
And then, when it comes to vegetation, absolutely. Eucalyptus trees have become a real problem with tipping over in the storm.
So liberals are in favor of open borders for people, but not for trees. Tamarisks are found all over the Muslim world, but this is one Muslim ban they're willing to support. When you come to America, you can bring your prayer rooms, your hijabs, your mosques, your Sharia law, but you better leave your tamarisk back in Tamariskistan. Not in my stand, says California. You can have your choice of female head cover, but not of tree cover. You have to assimilate with American trees. Because just like certain excitable young men of an extremist persuasion, the tamarisk is prone to self-combust.
Tamarisk trees themselves have been explosive during these fires that have been happening. So not only do we have the aspect of the traditional, the origin of the planting of these trees being to separate the black and people of color community across the street after their homes were demolished, by the way, by the city of Palm Springs under racist conditions.
So just like a Klansman, the tamarisk stands on your lawn and sets everything alight. As the old Christmas carol says, "O tamarisk, how racist are thy branches." What can we replace the tamarisk with? A nice stand of eucalyptus?
I think your guest last night mentioned eucalyptus, so it's interesting your guest tonight is saying no eucalyptus.
Democrats a decade ago, more trees, less bush. Democrats now, less trees, more open space to keep an eye on Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. Now, you might think liberals have finally flown the coop launching this war on trees. They're literally out of their tree. But what if they're right? What if this really is the root cause? What if trees are racist? Here are the 3 most forested states in the Union. And here are the whitest states in the Union. Coincidence? Americans are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to attend college, but is it worth it? Tucker will be back after the break to talk to a professor who says sending everyone to college is a huge mistake.
Your modern software factory runs millions of lines of code through trillions of connections. You think I'm dramatizing? Think again. Application security, each line a potential breach. That's why checking code before you deploy isn't enough. You have to check it continuously.
I do?
Yep, you do. When your app's in here, and when it's out here. I know, you can't be in a trillion places at once, but we can.
Power here inside of myself. I got the power here inside
the family function. Step 1, what to wear. Now is not the time for your most trendy fashion-forward ensemble. Instead, shoot for straightforward stylish. Think slim cardigan, casual button-up, cool casual trousers, maybe a nice rugged boot. Cap it off with a really nice watch so mom can cool it with the whole, "Are you sure you're alright for money?"
For a limited time only, join Planet Fitness for just $99 for one whole year. That's right, join the one and only judgment-free zone for just $99 for 1 year. Get a ton of cardio and strength equipment, plus free fitness training, all for just $99 for 1 year. Get this amazing deal today. Join in club or online at planetfitness.com. The world judges. We don't. Planet Fitness. Be free.
Visit any of our 10 upstate area locations by December 29th.
Get up to $400 toward a Galaxy Note 8 or S8 with qualifying trade-in. Only on Samsung.com.
If Americans believe in anything, it's higher education. Every year, millions of people borrow tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get degrees from colleges. When policymakers talk about how to improve the economic well-being of Americans, their ideas almost always include providing more education and upping graduation rates, whatever the cost. Brian Kaplan thinks this could all be a massive waste. He's got a PhD in economics. He's a professor at George Mason University. But despite all that, he's not entirely sold on the value of sending everyone to college. He just published a book called The Case Against Education. Professor Brian Kaplan joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
What's so striking is not just your views, which I share, but the fact that as a college professor, you're making this case. I mean, if I'm an AC repairman and I argue against air conditioning, I mean, I'm arguing against my own interest. Why are you arguing that college is not for everyone?
Well, I think of myself as a whistleblower. I mean, if I were just some guy writing in a basement, who would take it seriously?
True.
I think you really have to be a professor. You have to be someone who's done a lot of research to say this with any credibility, and that's really what
But we know that people who go to college, have bachelor's degrees, make more than those who don't. Isn't that kind of the end of the argument?
Not at all. So, I mean, there's years you could talk about it, but the main thing that I push is realizing that just because an individual is making more money does not mean that it's a good investment for society. The heart of my story is something called the signaling model of education, but in common sense terms, it just says a lot of the reason why education pays isn't that you're learning useful job skills. You're showing off, you're jumping through hoops, you're impressing employers, but of course, if everybody jumps through the hoops that can impress employers, you've got to jump through more hoops than everybody else, or else the whole process is a waste of time.
Exactly. The costs are really high. I mean, the cost not just to the individual, but to society, now to a whole generation of young people. How do those match up against the benefits?
Yeah, well, so again, for the individual, what I say is that if you are a strong student, then college is a good deal for you, especially if you do one of the high-earning majors. On the other hand, if you are a weaker student, someone who struggles to get through high school, then college is probably just going to be a waste of money, even for you personally. But again, I always try to turn it around to not just thinking about what's good for the individual, but thinking about it from the point of view of society. Should we really be encouraging more people to go? If people are actually acquiring a lot of useful skills in school, well, then it is an investment in our human capital. On the other hand, if the main thing you're doing is jumping through hoops and showing off, it's really a socially wasteful process to a large degree. And that's really what I say, is it is extremely wasteful for society.
But a lot of people are picking up addictions and mental illness in college.
Sure, of course you can do that other places. But yeah, I mean, in a way you might say there's the addiction to getting more education, which is fairly rampant.
So, what percentage would you, and this is speculative, but of any society, or ours specifically, ought to be going to college?
Say about 5%.
5%. So that would make you an elitist and a bad person because you're writing off the other 95%, correct?
Well, you might say that it's elitist to think that only a good person would. You have to be a good person, or you might think that you'd have to be an elitist to think that you aren't a good person if you don't go to college.
Good point.
Yeah. So college is the kind of thing. A lot of people just go through and punch the clock and sit through classes and get a degree in something or other. I don't see that it really improves them as a human being. It's a big burden on society, and also it's just a burden on the individual to feel like if I don't accomplish this, then my whole life is a waste of time. Really, when I say there's many different paths to success. I'm a big fan of vocational education, the kind that you see in countries like Germany and Switzerland. And again, just very notable how little of an underclass they have there. The kind of person who in the U.S. would say, I hate school, I'm sick of being here, maybe I'll go and drop out and be a criminal. In Switzerland or Germany, you're getting trained to be an auto mechanic or to be a plumber. So that you learn independence, learn skills. You get a peer group of skilled craftsmen instead of a peer group of criminals and dropouts. It seems like
that seems like an obvious point. We have models in other countries where this works quite well. Do you think the effect of tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbying by higher education lobbies has obscured that truth?
Maybe. I mean, I think ultimately the problem is the American people. People, as you said, people love the idea of education. If you go and just look at survey evidence, the share of Americans who favor cutting education is just almost minuscule, and that's really the main thing that I'm pushing, is spending less on education, saving money on something that really doesn't deliver the goods, especially from a social point of view, and thinking about better ways of spending it.
Do you have tenure?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I bet your bosses aren't impressed by this argument. Professor Kaplan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Tucker and Brian Kaplan. A lot of sense there. You can't get a plumber on a Sunday night, but you can certainly get a transgender and colonialism studies graduate. You probably wished a lot of people Merry Christmas over the weekend, but now some professors are connecting seasonal cheer to white nationalism. We'll discuss those claims next.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
And I can do it with what's already within me.
Because my body can still make its own insulin. And once weekly Trulicity activates my body to release it. Trulicity is not insulin. It comes in a once weekly, truly easy to use pen. It works 24/7, and you don't have to see or handle a needle.
Trulicity is a once-weekly injectable medicine to improve blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes when used with diet and exercise. It should not be the first medicine to treat diabetes or for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Trulicity if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, if you have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you're allergic to Trulicity. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or symptoms like itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, and indigestion. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I choose once weekly Trulicity to activate my within.
If you need help lowering your A1C and blood sugar, activate your within. Ask your doctor about once weekly Trulicity.
Sorry, I can't make it. It's just my eczema again, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
You okay?
Eczema, it's fine.
Hey.
Hi.
Aren't you hot? Eczema again?
It's fine.
I saw something the other day. Eczema exposed. Your eczema could be something called atopic dermatitis, which can be caused by inflammation under your skin. Maybe you should ask your doctor.
Go to eczemaexposed.com to learn more.
Newsweek magazine is delivering an important warning this Christmas season. On Sunday, Newsweek published an article saying that the Nazis and Donald Trump, quote, stole Christmas to promote white nationalism. In the piece, several writers and academics warned that phrases like Merry Christmas have become a dog whistle, showing support for whites and veiled hatred of Muslims, Jews, atheists, immigrants. Doubtless, painting Easter eggs will soon be a hateful assault on vegans everywhere. Nell Daly is a psychotherapist, and she joins us. Nell, do you buy into this idea that Merry Christmas is a racist dog whistle?
Well, I want to just talk about the article from Newsweek, not necessarily what I believe. As a journalist, I did some research into this, and I read the article and then I thought to myself, is there actually a war on Christmas happening? So 9 out of every 10 Americans in the United States celebrate Christmas. So I thought, okay, well, maybe there isn't a war happening. But what is happening in the Pew Center, which is a bipartisan research organization, came out with a study yesterday saying that only 46% of the people who actually celebrate Christmas view it as a religious holiday, which is down from 51% in 2013. So in a sense, there is a changing of the tides. I don't want to say a war on Christmas, but a changing of the tides that people in American society are becoming less religious.
But none of that surely justifies this comparison of Trump and the Nazis. I mean, for a start, the Nazis basically secularized Christmas. They turned it into a kind of pagan nature worship. So if anyone's comparable to the Nazis, it's the old hippy-dippy winter solstice worshippers all dancing around worshipping Mother Earth on December 21st or whatever it is. I mean, isn't that ridiculous just to compare the Nazis and Trump for their attitude to Christmas?
I think what the article was suggesting, and not myself, I think what the article was suggesting was that Trump is using this language to embolden...
Well, wait a minute, language like Merry Christmas.
Well, it's not just saying Merry Christmas, he's saying now the war on Christmas has ended. So the question is, was there ever a war on Christmas? And when you suggest that there was a war on Christmas, you make people feel defensive. Well, what people feel defensive when we say that there actually was a war on Christmas? No,
wasn't it that people were being made to be made defensive because they go to the shopping mall and the clerk says Happy Holidays as if there's something kind of dirty and not quite respectable about saying Merry Christmas?
It's interesting you bring that up because in the Pew Center research, about half of the people polled don't really care how they're addressed in stores during the holidays. They don't feel one way or the other, whether people say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. So I think, again, that the culture is changing and people are becoming much more okay with how everyone wants to express themselves in terms of the holiday.
Well, except on one side, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is this shakedown racket, essentially. They've all got very rich on it, salting their money away in British colonial tax havens. The SPLC Hate Tracker tracks as hate phrases hashtag Christmas and hashtag Jesus is the reason for the season. How come the hate group tracker that's quoted by all the mainstream media thinks hashtag Jesus is the reason for the season is a hate phrase?
That's really interesting. I can't answer that question. I don't know why. I really don't. I mean, I think, again, that the tides are changing. And, you know, the whole idea of saying that there was a war on Christmas is a backlash against a political correctness movement that started coming out during the 1990s. The premise of the political correctness movement, as far as I understand it, both from a psychotherapist point of view and from a journalist point of view, is about being inclusivity. So we want to have more room at the table for people to express themselves. No. It doesn't necessarily mean you take a seat away.
No, but doesn't it come because like Bush has his Happy Ramadan and all the rest of it, and suddenly it's Christmas, the big mainstream thing that has to be Happy Holidays, but Ramadan, Happy Hanukkah, and all the rest of it, Happy Eid, and all the rest of it. Thank you, Nell. We have to run. Speaking of Christmas, after a snowy Christmas in parts of the country, the bitter cold has arrived. We'll have the frigid forecast for you coming up next.
This woman approached me out of nowhere. She wants me to find a passenger.
In the bathroom, there is $100,000. That money is yours if you do this one little thing.
Someone on this train does not belong. All you have to do is find them.
I am not going to do this.
No one forced you to take that money.
If I identify them, someone on this train's going to kill them. What do you want from me?
The Commuter. Rated PG-13, January 12th.
For a limited time only, join Planet Fitness for just $99 for one whole year. That's right, join the one and only judgment-free zone for just $99 for 1 year. Get a ton of cardio and strength equipment, plus free fitness training, all for just $99 for 1 year. Get this amazing deal today. Join in club or online at planetfitness.com. The world judges. We don't. Planet Fitness. Be free.
Visit any of our 10 upstate area locations by December 29th.
A patch of ice sends a JetBlue plane skidding off the runway in Boston. Luckily, no one was hurt, but a dangerous deep freeze is now gripping much of the country during this holiday week. Fox 5 New York meteorologist Nick Gregory joins us with the freezing forecast. Nick.
Hello, Mark. Well, we're definitely talking about that lasting not just for a day or two, but this pattern that we're in for the next week is likely to stay in a very cold Arctic grip kind of pattern here. We talk about the polar vortex, and it's become sort of a more common response to our cold weather over the last couple of years. And that vortex, again, is now actually sending a couple of little troughs, little disturbances down. And so the result is the jet stream has made it much further to the south and will likely stay down low here over the next couple of days or so. Look at the source region for the temperatures as we go across southern Canada. These are the current temperatures, by the way, when you go from Winnipeg on eastward, minus 17, minus 36 up by Hudson Bay. So very, very cold air making its move down, and it will sort of get recharged over the country as time goes along. Only action in the country tonight, areas of rain moving through the Gulf Coast. That will slide out to the south and east, and some rain and snow, mountain snow anyway, coming into the west. Current temperatures now below zero in Minneapolis at minus 1. It's 10 below Rapid City, 8 Kansas City, 2 Chicago, 25 in New York, the chill even making it into the deep south, 36 Memphis, milder in Southern California and Arizona, and warm in South Florida, but even Florida and the east coast of the United States will get quite cold here. Wind chill values currently feeling like 17 below in Minneapolis, 11 below in Chicago, and again, even some wind chill factors making it feel below the freezing mark as you move through the southern states. Once again, the southwestern part of the country kind of escaping that. There are advisories for wind chill advisories. They